Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Dave coming to you from the paddock here in Southern Maryland. This is video number 2 for the day. Still smoking the Maryland Meerschaum. Still smoking Big and Burley. Coming to the end of the pot bowl, though. So this video is also in response to a direct question from one of you, and that is, we talked about I've used artificial intelligence or AI to do some training of myself, getting smart on things. And when you kick back a good question, that was, can AIs be biased? Can the results that AI returns to us in our research, can they be biased, and how so? And so that's the topic of today. No tobacco, nearly nothing else going on. This is a single subject video. It's on AI bias. And so if you're not into AI bias, off with you. And catch you on the next video. But that's where the rest of this video is going to be talking about artificial intelligence and the bias of results in our research should we choose to use it. Loaded up a new bowl, so let's go and get it lit. Thank you, Greg. So artificial intelligence, to some extent, I find it to be a super search. For those of you that are Google searchers or whatever you use, DuckDuckGo, you realize that the better your search, the better your results. Sometimes you have to be very specific, add a lot of keywords. That becomes less true with AI. I mean, the better you are with your search requests, the better it is as well. But to answer the question directly, can AI be biased? The answer is absolutely. And so I'm going to talk about, there are four real recognized ways in which AIs can be biased. Before I do that, though, I want to talk about, there are literally hundreds of AIs out there now. Bots is the other word you hear. And there's no way I could list them all, but there are 5 major AI bots out on the net right now. The one I use, number 1, is Elon Musk's Grok, Grok. Number 2 is OpenAI's ChatGPT. I think that's the one we hear about the most out there. And we're several generations in now. Like Grok is running its 3rd generation right now. I think OpenAI is running its like 5th or 6th ChatGPT. Microsoft has MAI. Google runs Gemini, and Apple runs Intelligence. So those are the 5: Musk, OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, and Apple. Those are the 5 big ones that I ran across when I started doing some of this research. They all have the same risk of being biased. The 4 biases I'm going to talk about really apply to any artificial intelligence and so on. But anyway, I just wanted you to be aware, because maybe you're not an AI user. Maybe you've never used ChatGPT. Maybe you've never used Grok. So I use Super Grok. It's a subscription. It opens it up to more data sets, which is actually part of the problem. So anyway, so now you know what the top 5 are. That at least those are the 5 biggies. Those are the ones everyone tries to use or copy or supersede. So let's go on now and talk about how they are biased. So in general, the number 1 way an AI can be biased is what's called the training data sets. The AIs aren't intelligent just on their own. They have to be trained, and they have to be trained on data sets. And much like a survey, you can change the results of the survey by who you choose to survey and how you choose to, what questions you choose to ask, and how you phrase the questions. You can completely change the survey, and that's kind of what we're taking big super surveys of worldwide data sets when we use AI. And so when when the creators of their AI, their bot, start to train it, they get to choose what data sets are used to train and create that information knowledge base that it underlies every AI. And so, if you don't want to, if you choose to only use conservative data sets, it's going to bias it. If you only use liberal data sets, it's going to bias it. So, and I don't find that the creators are very open about what training data sets they allowed in and which training data sets they restricted from coming into their bot. So that's a risk, and I think it's true for all of them, but it can be biased very much so by what data they allow into the information engine. So that's number one. Number two is algorithmic design, and sometimes that's intentionally biased by the programmer or the owner, and sometimes it's what do you call it? Unintended. It's I have a bias. I do, right? I'm a white 61-year-old rich male who lives in the United States. I am biased just by being that guy. I've operated in the Intel community for 35 years. That biases me. I live in the DC area. That biases me. My house is paid off. That biases me, right? So if I were to sit down and start creating an AI bot, I unintentionally realize I carry all of that with me. I'm happily married for 40 years to the same woman. That biases me. I have two great kids. That biases me. I'm an empty nester. That biases me. So I almost can't help but be biased when I sit down and program it. So that's what they mean by unintentional bias. There's intentional bias. You can sit down and say, I'm only going to create, I'm only going to allow this engine to accept, analyze, report on this kind of data, whatever way you want it to be. It's only going to be economic data. It's only going to be biometric data. It's only going to be U.S. intelligence data. I mean, it doesn't matter what this is. You bring unintended bias with everything we do. Every one of us does, by the way. I'm a dog owner. That biases me. And I can sit down and actually intend to create bias in the inference engine that I'm creating. So that's the second way. So the first are the data sets I use. The second is the algorithm I write to traverse that knowledge base. The third is what's called proxy data. So if I do allow a data set into my training database, into my knowledge base, maybe I don't take the whole database, right? I go through and say if there's 5,000 data elements in this database I'm using, I only want 20 of those data elements. And so I can create bias not only in the data sets I choose, but then to the specific data that I pull from each database to create the database I use, right? Because I can't copy all the world's databases, so I can only copy parts of them. So that's a third way, right? Not just in the data set, but in which pieces of data I choose to accept from that database. And the fourth is the process of evaluating the results before I present them to you. I can decide that there are results that I disagree with, so I'm going to screen those out. Ones I agree with, I'm going to allow in, and I'll sprinkle in some neutral ones to make it look like I'm not biasing my report. So those are the big four in how you can bias an AI bot. All right, so we've talked about the five big bots, AI bots. Talked about the four ways they probably are biased. So I think the last part of the video is how do you deal with that? So I think with any search algorithm, whether it be searching YouTube videos or Google search or DuckDuckGo or whatever your search engines are, I think you have to presume some level of bias in what's presented and not presented to you. And so I think the greatest way to identify if your results are too biased to be used or only presenting you with half the story is to search using at least 2 and maybe 3 different AI bots until you get a sense of how biased are the results. And I'll give you an example. I would use opposing, based on the ownership, I'd use opposing bots. Like, I think Elon's Grok is clearly going to be biased one way, and Google's Gemini is probably going to be biased in almost the opposite direction. So they'd be a good pair of AI bots to see how much each one returned and how common are the results so they return. If they both return similar results, I think you can assume that it's a usable piece of information and not biased. The results are returned by Grok that aren't returned by Gemini, and the results returned by Gemini, not by Grok, are probably you're going to have to look at and go, do these things make sense? The third one, the arbitrator, might be the OpenAI ChatGPT. I mean, it's a Chinese-based bot, so I imagine it's not biased towards the way Elon's is or the way Gemini is or Google's is. So, that could be the third arbitrator. So if you wanted to do 3 different AI bot searches, you can start training yourself as to who seems more biased where. I would be careful about using bots that are probably biased the same way. I'll give you an example. Microsoft My, Google Gemini, and Apple Intelligence. Those 3 are probably biased in a similar fashion. So I would not use those 3 to test each other. So, guys, I think that's it. I don't want to make this video too long. But can AI be biased? The answer is absolutely. It probably is biased, some intentionally and some not unintentionally. And we have to be intelligent users of artificial intelligence, right? We still are the greater brain at this point. Someday that won't be true. But in today's world, even as these bots become super bots, super intelligent, the 8th, 9th, 10th generation, some of the bots are actually generating their own next generation, by the way. Like ChatGPT is starting to generate its own next generation. If ChatGPT is, they probably all are at this point. But it's up to us, right? We have to be smart users. We have to look at different sources, just like we always do, before we go stand upon the results and say, this is the God of knowledge, right? This is the only way to see things. And that's it. I hope it helpful. Hope we learned something. If you have questions, if you want to poke back at me, please do, as always. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.